gentlemen, the greatest captain of all time, William Shatner!
Back in Dallas, I can say that. I'm here more than you are. I've been here with the one-man show, and I've been here with the lottery. Thanks. It's been 2 weeks. How can I remember that? And now the Comic-Con. So I'm getting to know Dallas. Got to find the right barbecue place first. I can't. You know, it's the greeting is the most difficult. Like, what do I say to begin? So I'll tell you, the last time I was near Dallas, I was in Austin and I drove around to San Antone, and Kyle. Have you been to Kyle? Come on, 5,000 people from Kyle. Well, the story is, and I told this on the late show, so if you were up that late, you were doing something irregular. But so the story goes this way. My dog, Starbuck. We named him Starbuck, and he's a wonderful Doberman pigeon, and he begat a litter, and we at home, and we kept one puppy. We named her Cappuccino. So now there's Starbuck and Cappuccino, and the mother of Cappuccino died in the intervening years, so she's gone. But Starbuck and Cappuccino, his daughter, are at home. So Starbuck gets to be about 10, 11, is getting ill, and it gets so ill that they have to castrate him to get to the other parts of his body, so they castrate him. At that point, my wife says, we've got to freeze the semen. So we find a place immediately, and we put the family jewels in a box with ice, and I run to the place that freezes semen, and I run down this long hallway, and then I get to the secretary and I say, I've got the balls, and she says, you certainly have. So we freeze the semen, and it's there for, and we think any moment Starbuck is going to die. Starbuck doesn't die. 11, 12, 13, he's 13 and a half years old now. He's staggering around, but he's still alive. The great old dog. But we're thinking, we don't want Cappuccino to be alone when he dies, because she's been with him for 6, 7 years. So we find a female dog. It's called a bitch. We find the bitch, and the bitch is in Kyle, Texas, okay? So we send the semen to a veterinarian in Kyle, Texas. We don't know where Kyle, Texas is. We know the bitch is there, and the lady, Tina has got the bitch. So Tina and Elizabeth and I are conferring about getting the right semen at the right time, and the bitch coming in. You know, it's all breeding. So the veterinarian, whom we don't know, calls one day and says, you will not believe this, but we have frozen semen from Starbuck's father, Ike. If we've got great semen from Ike, and we don't know the motility of Starbucks semen is a little strange, so we don't know whether, but what I'm going to do is, when the bitch comes in, when the egg is at the prime, there's like an hour or two, like the prime time, 12 hours before that, I'll impregnate her with Starbucks semen, and 12 hours after that, I'll impregnate her with Ike semen. We'll straddle, and we'll get puppies, and we won't know whether it's Starbucks or Starbucks' father, but at that point it doesn't matter. 11 weeks later, gestation period for puppies. 6 baby girls, 6 puppies are born. So we say, we're going to take 1, maybe 2 puppies. We're thinking, we can only really handle 1. We got 2 dobies at home, but what about the puppy and alone and taking her away from the litter, and she'll be alone, and then how do we acquaint? So when we get, Liz and I on the way to flying into Austin, figure we'll take 2 puppies. Now we rent a car, and we put in the GPS her address, which takes us through Kyle, Texas. It's not even, her address isn't even in Kyle, Texas. It's like outside of Kyle, Texas. So we're driving to a place we've never been before. We don't even know whether the GPS thing has the right address. I mean, you can make a mistake. So last Friday, a week ago Friday, we drive up to this, no, a week ago Thursday, we drive up to this strange house, and I walk in and I knock on the door. And somebody answers, and I say, "Are you Tina?" She says, "I'm Tina. You've arrived." Like the coming of, who knows? Go in the door, and there's the well-big box. There's 6 puppies. Okay, so now the problem is, how do you choose the right puppy? So there's a whole technique in choosing the right puppy from a litter. Like, you want personality, so you watch what they do and how they do. Who's the one that's most afraid? You don't want to do that. A Doberman that's afraid is a dangerous animal. You don't want one that's too aggressive, and then a Doberman that's aggressive is a dangerous animal. So there's this whole thing. Not only that, but you want confirmation. Maybe we would show a Dobie puppy. Years ago, when I first started in Dobies, many years ago, I had a great male dog. I named him Kirk. And Kirk did really well and got the Westminster Dog Show. And in what do they call it? In the group, the judge went. She lined them all up, and she went, and then she pointed at me, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to win the group. And she went, and you, the guy beside me. So I go around saying, I almost won the group with Kirk. Now we stack the puppies up, and we see what the confirmation is. We look at the way the puppies are running, and finally we choose 2 puppies. And we name them right then and there. Mocha and Espresso. Starbucks puppies. Now we begin the journey back to Los Angeles in a rented car. Okay? Remember, this is a week ago that we were north of Dallas, but the same storm systems came in. We drove through tornadoes. There was hail the size of golf balls that went to baseballs. It's thundering against the car, and I'm thinking, this is a rental car, I paid for insurance. I don't care! The worst thing is to be in your house and a tornado's coming. But if you want to experience the magnificence of nature, and you're in a rental car, to which you've paid insurance, no matter what harm comes to the car, it doesn't matter. Incredible. So I'm with 2 9-week-old puppies, my wife and I, and we're driving through tornadoes. Then the hail, then the lightning, and then the rain, and then we're out of it, and we're into Texas and driving as fast as we can. Got to get to Tucson, 1,000 miles almost away. I got to do it on a Friday. We'd stayed over Thursday night. We've got 2 9-week-old puppies. So 9-week-old puppies, they sleep, they eat, they pee, and they crap. Large cats. The mystery is, how does a puppy poop as large a turd as a puppy does? It's a mystery. It's weird, or what? Which happens to be the title of a show on the Sci-Fi Channel, which you all better watch. It's fun. And not only that, the rest areas in Texas and in Arizona, they call them rest areas, but you don't want to put a 9-week-old puppy down on the ground in these rest areas, because they either have those little spurs, those little burrs, that get into their pads, which they did, or the next rest area, they were going like this. We looked down, and there's red fire ants. Oh. And the third rest area that we got to was like grassy. It was like the Garden of Eden, except there was a sign that said, "Beware of rattlesnakes." Well, I got home between the poop and the pee and the eating and and it was all great. So we've got four dogs at home. My wife just texted me saying your pack is waiting for you. So that was my association with. And I was reading about the weather hitting Dallas as well, and so I commiserate with you, and we were frightened by those tornadoes. I could just imagine what it must be like to see one coming at you where you're losing life and property. Okay, so what I'd like to do is have you ask me a question, and I'll just ramble on and riff on the question and try and give you information and amuse you, and we'll spend an hour sort of getting to know each other. Well, then one more thing about me. Well, we'll either talk about me or you. I mean, which would you rather? And we'll talk about you in a minute. But just to finish up, I just finished the last licks on a new album, calling it Ponder the Mystery. I've written the lyrics. A great musician by the name of Billy Sherwood, who was one of the members of Yes, has written the music. It could be terrific. It's one of the, well, it's like appearing in front of an audience. You don't know how it's going. When I was on Craig Ferguson show the other night, my wife said, how did you think it went? I said, I thought it went rather well. And she was silent. I thought, no, dear. You never know. The audience tells you how a piece of what you're doing is any good or not. And I'm only, you can only do from your own heart what you think is good, and then I present it to you, and I hope you like it. And you, and you, and you. So Ponder the Mystery will be out late summer, and it may be spectacular. I have this fantasy. I did a one-man show. I came through Dallas and San Antonio. I did Texas. I did 4 or 5 cities in Texas this past year, and I opened on Broadway with that show. And opening night, you don't know how it's going to go. And by the way, I got the stomach flu the night before, so I opened on Broadway in a one-man show with stomach flu. I thought of it. I was trying to give it an historical context. I was like backstage, and I knew all the critics were out there, and I thought, oh, they're going to kill me. Do I have the energy? I thought, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait. I know that a year from now, I'll be in Dallas, Texas, talking to an audience about my having stomach flu and opening on Broadway. So I'll just think of this as being history, you know? And that's why I approach it. So this record, I'm thinking, could be another show. A light and magic show with great lighting and great effects, and Billy Sherwood with a 5-piece band, him singing, which he does extraordinarily well, and me saying these lyrics, which I've written, and maybe dancers maybe. So that's this fantasy I have of this record, if it's any good. So maybe I'll be back in another year in a one-man show called Ponder the Mystery. So. At the same time, I'm writing a book which will be out about the same period of time, the late summer, called Hire Yourself. Statistics are this, that people over the age of 55 are unemployed a little less percentage-wise than people younger, but have a longer time trying to get hired because there's the expectation of higher salaries, of course. So my book is entitled Hire Yourself, which will encourage people who have skills to try and open their choices to doing their own skill as their own business, and go into business for themselves is another possibility, the way of keeping a job. So the book will be called, at this moment at any rate, Hire Yourself. So I'm writing a book as well as doing this record. So those are the two activities. I'm editing right now a documentary that I made. We're calling it Wacky Doodle. And it's called Wacky Doodle. And first of all, it's about the next generation, okay? You guys have all seen the Next Generation cast. They're buddies of mine, all of them. I love them dearly, they're great. I'm gonna tell the story of the next generation in his formative first 2 years, it was crazy. Gene Roddenberry was getting ill at the time. He was making edicts that the other people had to follow, and the resulting chaos of the first 2 years of the next generation, I think, makes a compelling story. And I've got all kinds of wonderful people in it, and telling their story. The heads of the studio, the heads of the networks, people working on the show, the writers, the directors, the producers, all telling this intense story of trying to put on the air something that became enormously successful for 7 years, almost didn't make it between its first and second year because of this chaos that was going on. So we're editing that, calling it Wacky Doodle, and that'll be up in a while. Okay, questions. Do we have a microphone on the floor? I haven't.
Yes.
So have somebody speak loudly into the microphone and ask me a question that reflects a huge general subject.
All right. Mr. Shatner, over here to your left.
My left.
Yes. Stage left. Over here. Yeah. No, you're not going to see me, but that's fine. No, too far.
You didn't drop that.
Too far.
What's your question?
All right, question is this. You just mentioned new albums and books and documentaries.
Yeah.
So I take it then that you have no desire, and I hope you don't, stopping or retiring anytime soon, like your friend Leonard has sort of semi-retired. He has said
it's that semi that you got to watch. He's
semi-retiring from everything, but
right. Except he's doing this wonderful commercial that he did.
Yes. So I guess
getting all that money just doing it for right.
So you're not going to retire anytime soon?
No, I've got to go ride some horses. I'm deep in competition for reiners. Everybody, we're in Texas, reiners, right? Reining horses, sliding to a stop, doing go down. Deep into reiners. I'm deep into American saddlebreds. American saddlebreds, the beautiful horses. I'm deep into standardbreds. I'm a world champion in standardbreds, and the competition I'm in. I'm a world champion, not a world champion, but I've won saddles and buckles and prizes in California as a reiner, and on saddle horses, I'm a world champion many times in various things. I'm going to be driving a harness horse this year in Kentucky at the Kentucky State Fair and other shows too, but at the Kentucky State Fair, the saddlebreds and the standardbreds have their world championship, and so I'm going to know about that as well. So no, as against retiring, I'm trying to, you know what it is really? Here's what it is. I'm given the opportunity. This guy says to me, would you like to make another record? I said, I'd like to make another record. Of course. He said, well, what would you do? I said, well, I don't know. I said, well, why don't I take a guy sitting on the beach, despondent. He's in despair. And he says he's at the end of his rope, end of his life. He doesn't know what to do. He's lost. And take that hour of sunset into darkness. And that period of time, I'll write songs like I'm despondent, the sunset, the beginnings of the sounds of the night, some memories, and then finally, in the joy of the beauty of the night, he regains his affirmation of life. And although you, the audience, listening to the record, won't grasp that particularly, it was inspirational in writing a series of songs. How can I refuse to do that when the guy gives me an opportunity? I say to a guy, I'm doing a job for the guy says, you ought to write a book about the age of, over the age of 55. I said, I'd love to. He said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll do it, there won't be any publishing, no paper. It'll be all on the viral. You'll download the book. It's a whole new world out there. I'm doing brown bag wine tasting. Well, then I've got a website, WilliamShatner.com. You got to go to it, and everything is weather zones. What's a weather zone? It's like 2-3 minutes. I can do 2-3 minutes. So I thought, I'll take a brown bag with a wine bottle under it, a couple of glasses. I got a sommelier involved, and I got a friend who's a producer. And the three of us, and a couple of sound guys and film guys, 3 cameras. And I go and I say, hi, what do you do? Come here. Hi there. Hi there. Pretend I got a bottle of wine under my arm and 2 glasses, all right? What's your name?
Joseph.
Joseph, what do you do?
I work for,
Oh, you gotta remember the name of the firm you work for. Otherwise, you'll join the age of 55. You'll read my book. You work for the gas company. Okay, so now I want you to taste this wine. Okay? Taste it? No. No, no. Now, you gotta think of being in Dallas now, not in Kyle. Okay? You take the glass, and we clink, and I poured wine. Now taste it. Now, tell me what you think of the wine in gas company terms. I mean, I don't want to hear legs and mellow and vanilla. I want to hear in gas company terms. Tell me about the taste of the wine.
well, it's,
The name of the company is. Anyway, she goes to that. You got I should have known that the mohawk might have meant something there. But you get the idea. So the idea is that I talk to people on the street about how the wine tastes in their own terms. And it's like an opening for a conversation. We discover each other with the wine. It's called Brown Bag Wine Tasting. It's on my website. I've done 20 of them now. I'll do another 10, I'll do 30, and we'll just keep going until somebody breaks. It's a fabulous way of communicating with people. This past week, I did a shoot, a cover shoot for a small magazine called Cheese Aficionado. It's a cheese magazine. It's about all the cheeses in the world. I mean, there are as many cheeses? There's a lot of cheese in the world. And this magazine scratches like Cigar Aficionado. So this is Cheese Aficionado. And I've got brown bag cheese tasting as well. So I mean, there's no dearth of activity. I mean, these things are offered to me. How can I refuse to do them? So I'm impelled to do it. And in the meantime, what it seems to be doing is exercising my brain, so I forget a lot, but not as much as I would if I weren't doing it. I think keeping active is one of the things. Leonard is semi-retired. I don't know what that means. You get the semi, that could be a semi-truck, it could be semi-invalid, I don't know. I don't want to be semi-anything. If I could retire, I'll just ride a horse across the country or something. Next question.
Regarding Denny Crane,
yes.
One of my favorite characters. That seemed to be a character that so much of the Shat bled through into that character.
Shat?
How much?
My wife is shooting film on me and the puppy. She's calling it the Shat bag. And when we those puppies poop those turds, I think it's the shit bag. Go ahead, yes. The Shat bag bled through.
How much of that character came from the writers, and how much input did you have on where they took him and all the crazy antics they put him through?
Something happened on that show that I'd never heard of, never happened to me before, and I've never heard of happening, and that is, David E. Kelley is a genius. He wrote innumerable series. He was writing The Practice and Ally McBeal at the same time, and won an Emmy in comedy and drama in the same year. He's a genius. He was writing Boston Legal. And as I started to perform this strange character who was going a little crazy, as I began to reach for how to do it, because I mean, it's difficult. You want to tread a line of a guy who may be forgetful and losing his life force, and yet not wanting to admit it, and yet wanting to be loved, and yet wanting to be pertinent and still stay. I was the great lawyer, and now I'm not the great lawyer. What am I? And I tried to identify with that. The more I performed it, on the screen, David Kelly would see the rushes, the previous day's work, he would see on the screen as it was screened for him, and he'd write for the character. One day, he gave me, he said, say Denny Crane here. I said, just say Denny Crane. I said, say Denny Crane. So through the scene, I began to say Denny Crane. Like I'd say, Denny Crane. Like trying to remember, Denny Crane. And then aggressively, Denny Crane. And then, Denny Crane. I began to find different ways of saying the name, but conveying a message. Because he wasn't talking, but he was speaking in a nonverbal language. When Kelly saw that, he began to amplify that area. So it became a communion between writer and actor. And the strange part of it is, David Kelly rarely in the 5 years we did that show, came on the set. I rarely saw him. Maybe once a year, I'd see him. And yet this was this communication between writer and actor that I'd never heard of before or since. That's how much we did together. Okay? Next question. What was that? Little applause that didn't catch on. It's embarrassing when somebody starts to applaud, you know, and everybody looks at them. Next question. That's a good question. You can do it.
When you were in Star Trek, did you like doing the series, like the shows better, or the movies?
That's a good question. How old are you? How old are you?
8.
8. That's a good question. What's your name?
Gavin.
Gavin? Gavin. Gavin. Well, Gavin, you know, it's interesting the difference between the two things. And keep the microphone, Gavin, because I want to ask you how you would feel. When I finish giving you my answer, I want to ask how you would feel. So let me tell you the differences between these things. Doing a series, you do 10 pages of dialogue like that a day. 10 pages of dialogue. It takes 6 days, so you're going over the weekend, so it's like 8, 9 days for every show. So the leading actors have to learn 10 pages of dialogue every day. Day after day after day. And sometimes you don't get the pages until you walk on the set. There have been many times when I finished yesterday's work, I didn't know what to do tomorrow, today, as I walk on the set. I'm handed the page. I got to learn the lines right now. But in a way, it's exciting. It's as exciting as talking to you right now, not knowing what the next word out of my mouth is going to be any more than you do. And I used to worry about Freudian slips talking, you know, and then I began to forget about that and try and just communicate. So, doing a series day after day is exciting and so fatiguing that by the end, towards the end of the season, you're on your heels because you've had to memorize so much. You've had to do publicity. You've had to do interviews. You've had to work on the script. You've had to have discussions with the director, with the producer, with the head of the studio. There's all kinds of other things going on in a series, and it's the most exciting kind of work to be done, and yet it takes all your time. I had many family problems. I've done many series, and I've had many family problems based on the fact that I could never get home during the 8 months it took to shoot the series. So, that's doing a series. Doing a movie, they may take, say this was going to be a scene right now. All these people in the audience are in the scene, I'm on the scene, cameras are there, they're going to shoot me talking. Well, by the time they shoot all this in a movie, which has to be large, so it takes a lot of time for lighting and photographing and the number of shots, this could be a week right here. this one scene a week. Well, now the actors go into their dressing room and sit around and read or talk or sleep, and it is boring. Making this Star Trek movie that's coming out, this is going to be great. The guy who's most excited on the set and before and after is J.J. Abrams. He's alert to everything that's going on. It's going through his head. The director on a big movie is the only one who knows what's going on, because frequently the roof is falling and the water's coming in and there's a tornado and it's all happening on a computer screen months after the shoot right here. If this was Star Trek and there's a tornado coming, we never hear the tornado, we don't see the tornado, we don't know. We're going to pretend that that screen is the tornado. Okay, everybody react to that screen, because we don't know what the tornado is going to look like. In fact, J.J. Abrams doesn't know what the tornado is going to look like, because it's being drawn by somebody in a computer, even as he speaks. So it's boring, but there's a lot of money involved. So it gets to be less boring, you know what I mean? The money is exciting. And sometimes in a movie, there can be a great scene, and you could spend time getting that scene, and then it becomes an actor's job. But mostly in a big movie, it's boring. Mostly in a series, it's exciting. And the place where the actor really works is on stage, which is why I took that one-man show out to 40 cities in the United States, and I also toured Australia and Canada. So that's the difference. Now tell me, go, Gavin. Well, I was pretty good. It was 15 minutes and I remembered most of the letters. Gavin, what would you choose to do if you were an actor? A movie or a series?
A series.
What? A series. And would you choose to do something like Star Trek, or would you choose to do a romantic comedy?
Something like Star Trek.
Okay. Next question.
I guess, do you think the...
And how old are you, little boy? Okay, go ahead.
Do you think, like, the new actor in the new Star Trek movie does justice to playing as Captain Kirk?
All right, so here's the truth of it. The truth of the matter is, the only Star Trek that I have ever seen, and I've seen very little of that, is the Star Trek I was on. Don't tell this to anyone. I've never seen a Next Generation complete. I've seen bits and pieces. The other iterations, I don't even know. So that when I did a documentary called The Captains, did anybody see The Captains? When I interviewed everybody but Patrick Stewart, I didn't know what they did. I had to look at film and had to look at stuff that they were doing. So I didn't see the last movie. I was asked to come and see when it opened in Los Angeles the other day. I was asked to come and see it. I didn't come and see it because I had to go do puppy duty. Instead of going to see Star Trek, I had to pick up turds. I was with my pooper scooper a while Star Trek opened to acclaim. It's apparently a wonderful movie. I will go see it. You should all go see it, or if you haven't already seen it, because it is apparently spectacular. And J.J. Abrams has taken Star Trek and gone to another level with it, so it'll be around for a while, quite a while, I imagine. And by the way, you know J.J. Abrams is doing Star Wars. You know that? So the same director is doing Star Trek and Star Wars. And I've been having dialogue with the Star Wars people, some of the actors in Star Wars, as to which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars.
Trek!
Trek. Do I hear Trek? Trek. Well, that's what I said. But Princess Leia, what's her name? Carrie Fisher. So Carrie Fisher and I have been having a dialogue what is better about our own Star Wars and Star Trek. What can I tell her? Now, I'm going to point at somebody, and you just give me one. I'll point at 3 or 4 different people, and I want an operative word as to what is best about Star Trek over Star Wars. Picard. Live television. You never know what's going to happen. Yes, he's a woman. Dr. Shearer's a great buddy of mine. He's great. He's great. I know he's great. But I kind of like the original. Okay, Picard. So now I'm going to point at somebody else, and tell me what you think is best about Star Wars. Princess Leia and her dude. Princess Leia. Yeah, but think of all the beautiful blondes that were on Star Trek. I got a shrug there, okay. All right, so I'm looking at you. Give me yes, in the hat. Give me a word on why Star Wars is better than Star Trek. Oh, no. Why Star Trek is better than Star Wars? I don't know how to do that. What? One word, why you think Star Trek is better than Star Wars? What? Plot. Plot! Okay, so that's a Picard and plot. Okay, PP, I got PP. Okay, you sir. Yes. Give me a word. Nice and loud so I can hear it. The original cast. Original cast. All right, perfect. So we got original cast, Picard, plot. Lifesavers? Phasers. Wait a minute, lifesavers or phasers? Or lifesavers, what? Lifesavers. What's lifesaver? What's a lifesaver? Oh, lightsabers. Okay, lightsabers. So that's interesting. The technical stuff, all that technical stuff that Lucas was able to put in there was really fascinating. I love it. Yeah. In fact, that's why one thing begat the other. Star Trek had been the series, and was it the Next Generation when Star Wars came along? No, Star Wars first, right? Okay, so Star Wars comes along. Star Wars comes along, and we began to get phone calls from Paramount about, oh my God, Star Wars is a big hit. We got to do something. We got this strange show that went off the air 6, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, and we got to make a movie. And so all this began. The Star Wars begat Star Trek, the evolution. Then that became Star Trek the movie, with Robert Wise directing, a big director, and all these special effects, and it wasn't quite right. Right? I mean, it made money, but they were not going to do any more movies. And then the head of the studio, the guy who owned the studio, said, my wife loves Star Trek, we got to do it, we got to do it more cheaply. And we began those 6 or 7 movies that I was in, on a very strict budget of $30 million. And we knew that the box office was going to be $90 million, so the studio would make a few bucks guaranteed. And so they did that through The Next Generation, and then they were spending more money on production, not making as much, so they stopped making the movies altogether. And what happened to Star Wars? They just stopped as well, didn't they? And then they went bankrupt. And now J.J. Abrams holds both of those franchises in his hands. What an awesome responsibility. I mean, it truly, I mean, there's billions of dollars for the studio's potential. All these actors and technicians and people that are acquainted are with movies, all in one man's hands as to whether he'll be successful or not. It's impossible. Okay, was that the answer to the question? Because I forgot. Next question.
Over here.
Yeah, over there. Where? Over there?
First of all, I'd like to say, Mr. Shatner, growing up, you were my childhood hero. You are the greatest captain, as far as I'm concerned. Second, how do you feel about the way that Star Trek has basically just done to entire generations of people?
Here's how I feel. I'm in awe, and I tell you, I've been asked to speak to the observatory, observatory in September. They want me to speak for 45 minutes or so about how Star Trek lured the young young people into science, or people into science, I guess that's where I'll go with the speech. And I posted on Twitter that I wanted people's stories, and this goes for you guys, so go to williamshatner.com and pick up the information on how to do it. I think it's there. Anyway, I Twittered, I need some stories, interesting, meaningful stories of people on how Star Trek influenced them, the nature of which, and I will try and put that into my speech. In the same way, I Twittered, I want rainbow pictures that I'll put on the face of my new album. And we've got a lot of rainbow pictures. I'll select some of those to be the picture of the album cover, which it's not going to be an album, so I don't know how I'm going to do a cover. Just thought of that just now. I'll have to put up a special edition and use those pictures. In any case, I need stories, meaningful stories of people who were influenced by Star Trek. Because the people I've come into contact are awesome. I mean, I spoke to the astronaut, the Canadian astronaut, Hatfield, as he was coming over Los Angeles, 6 o'clock in the morning. He's in range of the only word that comes to mind is beaming. The telemetry, yeah, exactly. The things that, the satellites, perfect, that's the word. The satellites, and I had 10 minutes to talk to him on the phone. And he talked about, and he had said how much Star Trek had influenced him to become an astronaut. And I was able to talk to him for a moment about what he was seeing, and whether he saw any plan, whether there was something so formal and planned, that was there a sign of intelligence that he was following. And he sort of alluded that there was, as he orbited the Earth and looked out at the sky without the interference of our air and what he could see and feel. And so I was able to talk to him about himself, because I'd done some research on his background. He was a test pilot. I talked to him about fear. How does he deal with fear? And all this in 10 minutes, he's just going by, and finally the telemetry gave out as he disappeared. So there was a guy riding the International Space Station who had been influenced by Star Trek. I was going to shoot this film called The Captains. I was going to interview everybody who played a captain. I wanted to see what there was in common that we all had. But Patrick was in England, and the others were scattered around this country. And I needed to get on an airplane, and I didn't have the time or the energy to go through airports and I needed a private plane, but the cost of the private plane was more than the whole film. So I called a airplane manufacturer in Canada, Bombardier, and I said, "Can I speak to the CEO, please?" And they put me through to his office, and I was using my name, and guy picked it up. "Hello, I'm the CEO." I said, "My name is Shatner." He said, "Oh, Shatner, I said, "I'm shooting this film and I need a plane. Can you lend me a plane?" That's what I expected. And he said yes. And within a very short period of time, he lent me a plane that sat 8 or 9 people. It was a large Bombardier plane, flew us to England, flew us to New York, flew us all on back to Los Angeles, Toronto. He'd lent me a plane. You know why? As a kid, he watched Star Trek. He became an aeronautical engineer. As a result of being an aeronautical engineer, he entered the workforce at Bombardier and is now the CEO of Bombardier. All because of Star Trek. And he greeted me on the airplane. The airplane landed in Toronto. Yeah. People who have entered the sciences, people who have entered all kinds of fields based on their love of Star Trek. So I know that there are innumerable stories out there of people who either fleetingly or enormously influenced by Star Trek, and I want to hear from you in case I can use the story. So yes, I'm in awe of the influence of what is really a series that had a 3-year life and was consigned to the dustbin after 3 years and resurrected in some manner for some reason, and I'm not sure of any of that, except I'm here in front of you this evening because of Star Trek, and I'm very grateful to be here. How are we doing for time?
I'm your last question.
What's that? We got another question, but
Right here.
I'm going to be with you in a second. Somebody's going to come and get me when there's time? Yes, okay.
Yeah. He's going to come get you behind me.
With a net. Or a hook.
Last question.
What's your question?
My question is, how does it feel to be a part of television history and kind of nerds of color history? Because you had the first interracial kiss on a sci-fi show, and that was huge. So how does it feel to open up doors that you didn't even realize that you opened for all of us that got to see you on Jet magazine? Goodness gracious, who knew William Shatner would be on the cover of Jet magazine? How does that feel to open up doors?
Well, it's like I say, the whole thing is awesome. It was essentially a series of Wagon Train to the Stars. It literally was that, and the fact that it's become this other thing that is inspirational to a lot of people is I sort of in denial. Like, people come up to me and say these wonderful things, and for the longest time, I would think, are they kidding me? Are they kidding me on? That would be my attitude. Oh, thank you very much. And I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, they're putting me on. I mean, it's just a television show. They couldn't have think of it. And then I began to realize that there was so much more, and I began to investigate it and invest myself in it. And it's awesome. You know, there was nothing spectacular about kissing Nichelle Nichols. She was, and is, a beautiful woman, and you know, it's as much as you hear about how awful it is to play a scene in front of the camera, it's not. In the same way, you hear actors saying, "Oh, I do all my own stunts." If Tom Cruise hurt his little finger, just a tiny finger. Oh, I hurt my little finger. All right, stop. We have to stop shooting for a moment. Tom Cruise hurt his little finger. Get a medic here, please. And then I go, no, I better get a doctor. I see that he's cut his nail. So get it. All right, everybody said we're going to be about an hour patch up Tom Cruise's finger. What if he sprained an ankle doing a stunt? I'm sorry, we stopped work for, how long does it take for an ankle to heal? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Do you know how much a Tom Cruise movie it costs each day? Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. If he's down for an hour with that finger, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, every minute is cost. I mean, it's counted for. The cost of a minute. You do your own stunts, you could wreck the movie. So it looks like you're doing your own stunts, but and stunts, except me. I didn't do my own stunts for much of the time, especially on a series I did called T.J. Hooker. I was clinging to the roof of to the hood of that car with, and they would cable me off. I once got on a train on the top of an engine, of a diesel engine, and the guy says, the director says, if you could just get the train 10 miles an hour along this track, and you could be like, and the villain's coming up over the where the fireman is, and you're on the track, and we'll have a helicopter behind you with a camera. Well, no, the helicopter, the bad guys are in the helicopter, and there's another helicopter carrying a camera, and we'll go 10 miles an hour along the bridge, and just do some stuff, and we'll cable you off.